My reaction being, as I've said many times on this show, a soy boy cuck as I am, I'm like, when she murders all the men, I'm like excited.
Oh, man.
Like, let's do it again. Let's run it back.
If we actually were popular, we would get so much hate.
You kidding me?
We would be destroyed, and I'd love it.
Sweet Christmas.
Shout out to my birds.
Hello. This is Che.
And this is Cory.
And this is the Next Time On podcast, a podcast where two lifelong friends discuss all things amazing and all things vetted in popular culture. Today, we will be talking about the Damian Lillard trade and how somehow 3 teams got worse. Cory, what are your thoughts?
I'm laughing at Miami. It's just I don't follow basketball that much. Just know that Miami has been like wanting this trade for so long, and it just didn't work out for them. Is very funny to
Immediately, Jimmy Butler dropping a check the Bucks for tampering is hilarious to me. It's so funny because they were definitely talking to Damian Lillard during the season.
That's sarcasm, right? That has to be sarcasm, right?
The video doesn't look like it was sarcasm. I'll say that.
How was it? Never mind.
I don't know. It's really funny. We will not be talking about the Damian Lillard trade, which, as
we're
I said,
not a sports podcast yet.
Not
but
yet.
What we will ever actually end up being, it will be the most confusing takes of all time.
Wait until Manchester United is actually good, then you're not going to be able to hear the end of it from me. So at the moment, we're not a sports podcast because
Lewis Hamilton will rise again. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I don't know anything about Formula One.
See, you're just gonna tell things to me. I'm just gonna guess what the fuck you're talking about.
I started the Gran Turismo movie last night because it's on digital, and I'll tell you this right now. It's not for me, sir.
No.
I don't know. I don't even know what's bad. I just don't care about cars. I didn't even really like Ford versus Ferrari, and that movie's like,
oh
good.
Man, I don't know what it is about me. I just like seeing cars go fast.
Yeah, you're a sicko. You like Speed Racer.
I know. I'm a sicko. That's fair. That's on my grave. I want you to put, for some reason, Cory likes giant robots in cars that go fast. You can't explain it, but that's what he likes.
Is there a giant robot cars movie? There's got to be
Transformers.
One, right? Okay, sorry. Is there a giant robot cars movie that isn't terrible?
No, and it makes me sad.
Were there cars in that weird Hugh Jackman boxing robot movie?
I never actually saw that one.
I have seen it, but I don't remember anything about it.
I don't remember that. I was going to see it, but I'm like, this is just Rock'em Sock'em Robots, the movie.
It is Rock'em Sock'em Robots movie. And if it come out today, it would just be a Rock'em Sock'em Robots movie.
You know what, man? I'm going to wait for the Vin Diesel Rock'em Sock'em Robots movie.
Part of me is like, I kind of feel bad because it seems like everyone hates him now, and like he sort of like destroyed his career by being too afraid to stop making Fast and Furious movies. And the other part of me is like, I kind of just want to see how bad it gets. I kind of want to see how much of a weirdo he becomes. It's
kind of insane that like he just kind of has as much control as he has over the Fast and Furious franchise, because it's like
insane. It's a bad idea.
It's like has like there's some producer, someone in the studio. I'm like, yo, these are like starting to get like increasingly worse. Like it was already bad, but now it's just getting like
we're confirmed just 2 more. Is that officially the count?
I wish I could tell you. I'm part of me is this weird obligation that I want to finish this series out and see it all.
If you're a Fast and Furious fan and you've come 10 movies deep, you just have to. At this point, you just have to.
I gotta see how it goes. But like the movie ended on a cliffhanger that was so obvious that no one died that I was just like, I don't care. But I still am curious. Huh? There's a cliffhanger. Yeah, like spoilers, I guess. Like they break a dam and then Vin Diesel stops the oncoming water with a car door as a shield while protecting his son. What? But also in the background,
hold on.
Jason Momoa and Jack Reacher shoot a fighter jet out of the air containing Tyrese. He
stops the water with a car door.
I just said what happened.
Kind of dam is
Maybe it was an explosion. I don't actually remember. See, it's kind of stupid. But yeah, a plane gets shot down over there. It's fucking stupid as hell.
I watched some clips. I had some friends over, and I don't actually know why we started talking about it, but we were talking about Fast and Furious, so we were just like, we should watch some clips of Jason Momoa in this most recent Fast and Furious movie, and it is strange. It's a strange.
But honestly,
I like it. The problem with his performance is not his performance. Is that no one else besides Jason Momoa understands what kind of movie they're in. So he looks insane.
That's
he looks
the fucking
insane.
problem. If everyone was on that energy, it would work.
It would be a fun movie. Jason was the only one that realizes that Fast and Furious is stupid. Everyone else thinks it's a serious film.
I think he knows. I think Alan Richardson knows as well because he's just playing the whole like this is very serious, and I think he understands what it is. But I think all of the main characters in this series, besides Han, who literally is just on shrooms at one point in the movie, like takes this shit
I forgot that clip existed because you did tell me about that. I should have watched that clip. I didn't see it.
It's just a weird one. Pete Davidson's there also. It's just a weird. It's a weird vibe of a movie.
I can't wait till we're done with the Pete Davidson stuff.
Man, I thought we were done. Every time he pops up, it just confuses me.
Well, to be fair, the Fast and Furious does feel like it's like 2 years behind the culture. So that's probably why he's in it now.
I think also, I mean, the same note as Transformers, it appeals to the same exact audience. And I'm sure the crossover of those two movies are pretty much the same person.
Yeah.
As I saw both of them, so I really can't throw too much shade at anybody.
I still enjoyed Rise of the Beast.
I did too, but didn't enjoy the most. I've not really enjoyed most of the recent Fast movies, but let's actually get talking about some actual good things.
Yeah, today we're not actually doing a Fast and Furious or an NBA trade podcast or any of the other stuff we just talked about for the opening 5 minutes of this podcast. We will be talking about new comics from DC, Marvel, and Image, but before we do all that, don't forget, follow us at Next Time on Pod on our social media platforms, including over there at youtube.com. Go over, check out the video. If you're on YouTube right now, though, don't forget to subscribe, like, all that good stuff. We've got more of this good shit coming to you. Next up is going to be a very visual episode, so you need to be over on the YouTube. We are doing Deep Blue Sea, The Curse of the Rewatch. I'm excited for that one. I have to do a lot of research which includes watching way more shark movies than I really want to, because
you saw the Meg 2.
I saw the Meg 2. I need to cram in, but my goal is to watch quote unquote good shark movies, because as I said, and I teased to our Deep Blue Sea in a previous episode, and I will settle this debate on the episode. So don't forget to subscribe if you want to find out the answer to this question. Is there more than one good shark movie ever? And I think the answer is no.
I will do a little bit of a plug for something if people live in New York and have a chance to experience this. There's this traveling thing called Spoons, Tunes, and Booze, where people show up, you get free cereal, order cocktails, whatever, and everyone gets the
mistake.
It's a mistake, but I love it. Yeah, but everybody, basically, you guys play games throughout the day of the show in like 3 hours, and everybody, if you win, you get to play one of your favorite cartoons. Basically, that's the whole point of it. And at the end, there's like people can vote on what they want to be as the final cartoon. The one I went to, the final cartoon, was this 90s show called Street Sharks, where it is
Street Sharks.
Yeah, I know, right?
Speaking of fucking Vin Diesel, isn't that famous interview of him him doing a commercial for Street Shark action figures?
Wait, really?
I think so. Keep talking. I'm going to look.
Okay. Well, if you guys have never seen Street Sharks, it's basically like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but for sharks. But instead of they were never sharks originally. They were regular teenage boys who were transformed into their lower halves are legs and their upper halves are giant shark bodies, and they look horrifying. But in the episode I watched, they helped liberate communist Russia. But
Street Sharks is unhinged.
It's absolutely unhinged. Yeah. But I'm wondering, it probably was my second favorite shark ingested media. And I think that's very sad.
Yeah.
But also a great cartoon. You guys will get bored and watch it. Really, really recommend checking it out. I was like kind of drunk at the point, and it was just honestly like a great way to end that entire experience. But recommend Spoons, Tunes, and Booze. I don't really know if they're anywhere outside of New York, but I really recommend them.
Also, I have confirmed, Corey, and I'm definitely dropping this in the episode.
We're looking at Boomer. This is Boomer. He's got the biggest mouth of them all. He's the whale shark. Say hello to that round mound of pound and his power slam. Very deadly. Oh. He loves to tenderize the competition before he eats him. Then we've got Sledge the Hammerhead. Sledge the Hammerhead loves to floor the competition with the flying headbutt. Oh. You got me? He's the leader of the Street Sharks. He's a great warrior. He's got the real shark skin, and his special power is the right hand roundhouse punch. He sends the competition to a watery grave. Boom! Death. I want to show you something up close and personal. I've got something here with such fantastic detail it's gonna blow you away. Head shark! Good chase! Rocky Balboa action.
Cory won't be able to see it because I don't have
okay.
that technological ability. But all the YouTube viewers will have just seen Vin Diesel at a toy fair pitching Street Shark action figures. So,
Wow. Honestly,
it all comes full circle, honestly.
Truthfully, that's probably the best, ever concise way we've ever done anything. And we did it on purpose.
It's truly a magical episode. That wasn't actually Cory's elevator pitch, despite what it sounds like. So I'm going to put a minute on the clock for Cory, and he's going to pitch you guys his actual elevator pitch. Which,
sure.
Do you want to switch it to Street Sharks, the television show where they rescue communist Russia?
They go to Chernobyl stand. It's truly amazing.
What do you mean they go to Chernobyl stand?
They get a letter from this child in a 1984 Russia saying, "Can you please help save my country?" They roll with a jetpack and they liberate them. They tear down this government and then they make everything better.
I just want to say, no wonder millennials
minutes.
are so fucked. Obviously, we'll never
up.
be able to buy real estate. Our cartoons were about sharks rescuing Chernobyl stand. We were losing from the get-go. It's been a rap for us since the 90s.
Super into Russia. I didn't realize that Dexter from Dexter's Laboratory actually was he's Russian.
Yeah, he's Russian. He's Russian.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
He's Russian in a very weird way too, because he's racist Russian.
A little bit, very little bit.
But then Dee Dee isn't.
No, Dee Dee's normal. So are his parents. His parents are normal too.
So fucking weird.
Also, Captain Planet. That was also a weird one that also included Russia. That show was crazy.
I'm really not looking forward to the hardcore 90s nostalgia era. I don't really want it. I don't think the 90s
watching those cartoons, I'm kind of scared, but also I'm ready to embrace it. I hope that if we ever do get a live action Captain Planet, the one from Russia, it still goes by such and such from the Soviet Union, which was just such a shocker to hear.
But anyway, we did get a live action Captain Planet. With
Don Cheadle. Right. What am I talking about? Don Cheadle. Yes. How did I fucking forget about that? Okay, give me my minute.
Minute on the clock for Cory, and go.
I guess my thing isn't really something that you didn't hear about, because I think if you have any kind of streaming capability, especially Max, you actually have probably gotten this pushed at you already. But Adventure Time Fiona and Cake is actually a very good miniseries. I think that's only 2 more episodes. Probably by the time this is out, it's going to be already finished. But it's kind of like I want to say a sequel to Adventure Time, but aged up for adults without really the need to actually have seen the original. I mean, it's one of those things, you had the nods to it, but I think it's kind of a cartoon just dealing a lot with existential crises and figuring out where you are in the world, especially in a world that doesn't really recognize you. But it does what a lot of, especially speaking about nostalgia, things that usually don't do. They, instead of rehashing what you already had, they kind of just brought it back and treated your audience as they actually have grown up a bit. Really good show, and if you want to see Donald Glover play a bisexual vampire, give it a shot.
What an end to the pitch.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of, you gotta give him a stinger, right?
Yeah, no, I like it. I definitely like it. Yeah, we were talking about before. I don't know if I've ever seen Adventure Time. We're trying to remember if when we did.
And I gotta say, I don't really know if it really it's some. I mean, I haven't watched the show since it ended, so I'm a lot of the references. I'm I don't know what the fuck's going on sometimes. Mm-hmm. But the story itself is actually, I think you could go in without knowing anything. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think I recommended Adventure Time as one of my favorite things of the year when it actually did end up wrapping. Mm-hmm. Beginning parts, meh, but as the show got its footing and kind of entered its own weird niche where Cartoon Network was just letting it do what it wanted to do, it became really fun.
All right, minute on the clock for me.
Do it.
Cory and I are about to pitch 2 drastically different things.
As we do. I think we like to give our audience variety.
As we do. All right, minute and starting. So the thing that I am pitching is old. It's real old. It is the 1975 Belgian film by Chantal Ankerman, and I'm not even going to bother trying the French pronunciation. Jean Dillman, 23 Commerce Quay, 1080 Brussels. And this is by estimation of the British Film Institute, the greatest film of all time. It was the shocking number one spot in the 2022 Sight and Sound updated film list. Gained both notoriety and surprise from everybody across the globe. And I had never seen this movie until last week. The AFI by me is doing a replay of all the top 10s. And I watched this movie, and I'm going to go well over my minute. So I'm just going to keep talking.
That's okay.
Because I think this movie is fascinating. When I left the theater, I was like, I don't think I would say this is the best movie of all time, but saying something is the best movie of all time is really hard. It's like that Tiger Woods quote where he is asked if he's the greatest golfer ever, and he just says, I just want to be in the conversation. I think this movie is probably in the conversation. If somebody said this was their best movie, I mean, many people have said this is the best movie of all time. It made the Sight and Sound poll list. I would not be shocked or think they didn't know anything about film. I am not a purveyor of slow cinema, and this is a slow cinema classic. But I will say, like I said, when I left the theater, I did not like this movie, and I was like, that's sort of weird and kind of, I think, really heady in a way that I don't respect, and then I haven't stopped thinking about it since. It's been about a week, and I keep thinking about this movie. Will I go back and revisit it? I don't know. It's well over 3 hours, and it is basically just a woman in her apartment cooking and cleaning until the last 30 seconds, and then it gets really exciting, and then the movie ends. So I don't want to spoil anything, because I think people who are interested in film should see this movie. It is, as I said, it's a very important film. But I found the experience really invigorating, because it's been, especially in this, like, the strike era, where I've been in a real down place about film, and excited that WA strike is over officially. But seeing this movie made me, like, really excited to be in the theater in a way that I hadn't been in a while. So I don't know. I don't know what else to really say about quote unquote the greatest movie of all time, besides I kind of want to keep thinking about it and revisiting it, which doesn't really happen a lot with movies. Like I saw The Equalizer 3 and I thought that movie was fucking fire, and I will be watching it again, but I certainly am not, like, picking over it in my brain. Yeah, in the same way. But, you know. It's on Max, same as Adventure Time, so if you guys are interested, you can go check that out tonight.
Say the name again?
I'll say the name again. Jean Demel, 23rd Commerce Quay, 1080 Brussels. Which is probably easier to find if you just go to the Sight and Sound poll and check out the list. A lot of really good movies in there. I saw almost all of the top 10 in theater, because, like I said, the AFI did it. A lot of really good ones that I'd seen before and revisited. My favorite, going back, which I hadn't seen in a long time, was Tokyo Story. That's a real, like, it's a classic of Japanese cinema. So a lot of really good stuff in there, obviously.
I will give it a watch, but I mean, saying if you want to just watch someone do nothing in their apartment for 3 hours, honestly, I can set a webcam up and you guys can pay me.
I think there's a market for that out there.
There is. You know what? I can't complain because I'm getting my job back, so I can shut up. But
I think you can still complain. I think the film and entertainment industry is still in a rough place. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about picture books. And first up on the picture book list is an excellent edition by our boy Tom King. And this is it officially called Wonder Woman Outlaw, or is this just Wonder Woman?
I think it's just straight up, it is Wonder Woman. Just the new ongoing for Wonder Woman. Just Wonder Woman #1. Nothing really new. We have art by...
It's Daniel Sampier is the artist, and...
Tomei Morey on colors, and Clayton Cowles with lettering.
Our boy Clayton.
And if we didn't say already, Tom King is the writer for this new ongoing. But before we even get into what happened in the issue, come out front, I think this is one of those comics people should go fucking buy. You don't need to know shit going into it. Just a solid first issue of a comic. I haven't been this excited for like an ongoing like #1 in a while. And I loved Immortal Thor, but this one was like, oh, I want to just keep on going with this.
Immortal Thor was really fun in we talked about that also in a few episodes back. Immortal Thor was fun in like a comic booky way, which I love, and it's pretty campy. This feels like a really, I mean, Tom King he really elevates stuff to a different level. We're going to talk about a couple of their books today that I think are really separate themselves from the pack. But there's just a few scenes and pages in here that we'll get to when we talk more in depth about it that just feel like it's just hard to picture this in just like a book you picked up casually from the big two. Like, there's only a few writers that can do stuff like this.
So basically what this first issue is about, in a random dive bar, a Amazon is playing pool, I think, but she gets assaulted / jeered at by a group of men. I mean, I feel like this was very much like you see this all the time in like movies where you just want to be like, this girl's tough kind of story. But in this case, she ends up murdering everybody in the bar.
It's there. The page where we go to the outside of the bar and you see the blood spatter before we get a confirmation everybody's dead. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, like, this fight's
nobody
like pretty...
it's gonna. I thought it was gonna be like, oh, Amazon beats up a bunch of guys in a bar, and I was like, that's a lot of blood.
Yeah,
and then you find out what happened is Amazon kills 19 guys. It was 19 or 12? 19 guys.
It
right?
was. I think it's a shit ton of people.
There's 19 guys in a bar.
And then also, but afterwards she flees the scene, so that's one of the mysteries. We don't know what happens to her. But of course, when this happened, basically national news, it like blows up, and people do the whole back and forth political spectrum, kind of like the news sensationalizes things, and then it leads into the United States government hunting down Amazons in order to deport them. What they say on paper. What we later on see is basically they're hunting them, and involving a chilling scene of we'll get to that scene in a second, but basically it ends up with Amazon being dead. While this is all going on, I don't think we see Wonder Woman for the first 15 pages of this book.
She shows up on page 20, to be exact.
And the entire book is kind of basically being like, oh shit, like she's going to be really mad about this. And it's like this very well done build up. And I like how they pretty much were treating her as just a kind of like force of nature that was coming.
They don't even really say Wonder Woman until like halfway through the book, like right before she comes on screen. I think the first time the words Wonder Woman are uttered is when that senator is being interviewed on the news, and that's like I have it here, page 16, and we've been spending this first opening. It was sort of the point where I was like, oh, is that for some reason is Wonder Woman blonde in this book, and they're just not like saying it, and then of course that's not Wonder Woman in the opening pages, but
and eventually get a very amazing scene of her being assaulted in a cemetery where she's like just effortlessly takes down in a very cathartic scene of just destroying this group of shitty CIA Stanton, assholes.
The John Woo dubs are fucking hilarious. It's so funny.
Just over the top.
Leave it to Tom King.
It is, as Che and I were talking between this, it's like, well, I guess we'll get to the final page on this. Actually, I don't want to reveal exactly the final page in case you're reading it. Should we?
I think it's fine. Issue 1 spoilers, I think, are not a big deal.
But we basically learn that there's actually this kind of extreme measures is actually being pushed upon the government by somebody who's called the Sovereign, who is a old man who is King of America, allegedly.
Like, and his family's been King of America since the beginning of America, basically.
With this like insane bald ego throne, while he holds what is called the lasso of lies.
We were saying before, like, basically up until that point, and I love it. I love the lasso of lies. I love the Sovereign. I love his goofy ass throne and his silly little like semi-religious, but also very American military reminiscent outfit. All of that up until that point in the book, it's a pretty grounded piece of fiction. Like you said,
it's pretty obvious to see the stand-ins of what we're. Yeah, he's not being subtle with the thing, which is, and it's okay.
I think it works in this book also because it's not. It's a lack of subtlety in a way that feels true to life. I mean, the scene that you touched on where we see the course of the story over time, where it starts off with a news reporter saying, "We have reports tonight of a gruesome scene at the Kangaroo's pool hall in West Billings. At least 10 believed dead. and that number does appear to be rising. That's the first panel. And then by the end, it's the announcement that the president has met with the majority leader, Taylor, to discuss the future of the Amazons in America. And then, it over the course of these 9 panels, we see the story get twisted and turned into something that is, as all of these things are, leveraged for political gain, where it is a singular Amazon in a bar committing a crime turns into a terrorist act by the Amazon government and retaliated by the American government. Of course, I mean, anybody who's been alive since 2001 knows exactly what's going on here. Or people who haven't been alive know what's going on. This has been loud and clear, the discourse in our country, So I think I knew this book was good when I got to like page 12 and I was angry. And I was like, this shit's making me mad.
It legitimately does a great job, which I think, and I was talking to Che before, it's like, this is basically what a good X-Men comic does. I think it's where you have this comic backdrop, but also tackling social issues. Part to the point I'm like, he definitely wanted to write like an X-Men comic at some point. But
it's got all the hallmarks of an X-Men. Like I was saying, one of my favorite scenes is that the father getting interviewed on the news, which has been in like every X-Men book, where there's just some guy being like, these X-Men, I'm all for them being in our country, but also maybe they shouldn't be in our country.
Don't like it. I will say this. So I think I'm happy I didn't get to see the same annoying scene that I see in every X-Men comic where there's a close friend or family who calls and be like, yeah, come home. And then they do the backdrop being like the reveal that someone's actually listening in on the phone call. And I'm like, I feel like I've seen that scene about 30 times already, and I think X-Men comics still continue to do it, and it just needs to be enough. And I'm happy that there's a different take on this, in a sense. But that scene, I did really like the scene back and forth where the dad is just like so starkly, I guess, ignoring what his daughter is saying, how much she likes Wonder Woman, being like, and it's like even like people being like, it's like being like, I don't like Superman in this world. You would be dead without him,
right?
And it's like an insane, like I don't really like Wonder Woman. Okay,
it's also the juxtaposition between like the idea that hate is learned. Like this girl is too young to realize that she's supposed to be bigoted against the Amazons. She hasn't been taught that yet by society. This guy yet this man, and it's no mistake that it's a man, is like talking about, these women live on this island. They call it paradise, but there's no men there. Maybe they don't share the same values as America. The amount of, as I'm sure the same with you, Corey, anytime I hear somebody say America, it triggers my fight or flight. And the number of times in this book, I'm like, people being like, the values of America just makes me know you're a shit person. And that is all distilled so perfectly in one of my favorite villains that I've seen on a page in a long time, and is this guy Sergeant Steele, who is a true evil prick.
Such a good stand-in evil government guy, but he has a little bit of comic book. He's like a metal hand, but he's just unabashedly a fucking dickhead. Yeah, that it's like you see him win. I think that's such a good thing when you do a villain. You see them win once, and then when you see them lose, it just feels so good.
Although I assume and hope we're not done with him. I know that it seems like the big bad is obviously the Sovereign, but I think Steele will be around.
Yeah, I think so too. You got to have that petty guy who just keeps getting knocked down a peg. And honestly,
it's the smile. It's the smile that makes my skin crawl.
It's the smile in the big ass glasses, and I just fucking can't stand it.
If they ever make this into a movie, which I would watch, that's got to be John Hamm.
Absolutely. They need to reboot Wonder Woman and just do this story.
But recast it also.
Oh, that's what I said. I meant reboot with a strong boot. I think the only confirmations James Gunn had said, the only ones who are coming back right now are Zolo from Blue Beetle, John Cena, and I'm so sorry. I'm drawing a blank on her name. Amanda Waller. Oh man, what is?
Viola Davis.
Thank you, Jesus. But I think those are the only 3 that have been confirmed to be coming back. Gal Gadot and Margot Robbie, haven't heard from them yet. Margot would be a shame.
I have a feeling that maybe it's up to both of them. I don't know the Gal Gadot relationship with the studio and all this stuff, but I have a feeling that it's up to Margot Robbie whether she.
It is up to Margot Robbie, absolutely. I think there's a very big difference between the two of them. It's up to
Imagine
Margot.
James Gunn coming out after the year of Barbie and being like, well, we actually don't want Margot Robbie to come back as Harley Quinn. I know she just fucking shattered records with her film.
Her image is way too clean. We don't like that. It's like the opposite. You're like, no, too pure.
Imagine the fucking meta jokes you could make about Barbie now that it would be so perfect.
And it's a WB property too. You can do both of them. You can just talk about it.
Ryan Gosling as Ken in the DC universe.
Just just keep the same character. Don't acknowledge it, and that's just the thing.
He's just walking around Gotham,
fucking rollerblading.
Yeah.
But what else do you have to say about this first issue? I love this.
I think it is. I think current day of stories, modern stories, are really difficult to write. Now, obviously, this is not like a true to life story. It's about superheroes and stuff. But I think tapping into the real world in a way that doesn't feel, one, heavy-handed, or two, really cheesy is one of the most challenging things for writers and creators to do. And I think this book executes that vision really well, where you just have a story that is really believable, that if you had this thing happen, it doesn't hurt that we are obviously in the throes of, I imagine, as somebody who tries their best to avoid twitter.com or x.com and like Reddit and all this shit, I imagine there is a lot of voices out there up in arms about this particular issue because it's quote unquote man-hating, it's an example of misandry, all this shit. I'm sure that exists. Obviously, like you said, the book opens with her. We don't see it, but we have this great opening page. Cory and I are talking about this has become like a sort of a Tom King staple of him opening the book with sort of like a inanimate object that's devoid from the story, and then you get a voiceover. And in this, I think it's really effective because we hear this outset of the altercation that's obviously sets everything off, and over top of it we have the voiceover that it turns out later we find out at the end of the book is the Sovereign. But I love this opening part because we have this thing where we hear her get sexually assaulted, groped in a bar, and my reaction being, as I've said many times on this show, a soy boy cuck as I am, I'm like, when she murders all the men, I'm like excited.
Oh, man.
Like, let's do it again. Let's run it back.
If we actually were popular, we would get so much hate.
You kidding me?
We would be destroyed, and I'd love it.
Two black fucking basically socialists talking about comic books and Barbie movies. They would not like us.
Praising Wonder Woman. Let's fucking go.
I think this book is really smart, and Tom King has proved once again that he just has an understanding for the way that people talk and act around each other. The dialogue is so great. The scenes where, that scene that you were talking about where the Amazon gets killed in front of her house because her and her wife are trying to figure out a way to stay so they don't have to abandon their daughter, who literally the Steele comes to their house and is like, get in my car now and I'll take you to a boat and we'll take your daughter somewhere. And that the conversation between them is one, it's but angering, and also really believable and really well written.
And I think that's also such a smart way as a writer to get deal with the whole why don't they fucking just leave then? You give a case study why you don't just leave. I think that's such an amazing answer to that question immediately. I'm like, yep, nope, makes sense.
We see one of the few, it literally up into that page, because I'm gonna mention The Equalizer again. That's okay. Because I'm watching The Equalizer and it gets to essentially the end of the movie, and it's actually perfect timing in the movie where I'm thinking this is not a spoiler, the movie's set in Italy and Denzel Washington's doing Equalizer shit in Italy.
Dude, and after only watching the first 30 minutes of the first Equalizer, that's a wild sentence to go.
It is, because the second one's also in Philly, so it's or Boston or whatever, and then the third one's just in Italy, and it doesn't tell you, again, I'm not gonna spoil the movie, don't worry, it doesn't tell you why he's there. And you're not really thinking about it. It sort of crossed my mind a couple of times. It's why the fuck is Denzel? Because really, what I was thinking is Denzel himself wanted a vacation in Italy, and was just we'll just set The Equalizer in Italy. But I get to the end of the movie, and I'm like, why did any of this happen? And then it has just a great answer for you, which ties everything together. Up until that exact scene, I'm where we're getting stories of like the Amazons are being run out of the country and they don't want to stay, and they have to form this mercenary hitman government agency with steel to run them out of town and run them out of the country. And my entire thought up until that exact scene is, hey, why don't they just leave? This country's dog shit. they could go back to their paradise island. They literally call paradise and not have to deal with any of this shit. Why do they want to stay in America? And then of course you get maybe the only satisfying answer, which is like they don't want to abandon their daughter. But it turns out later that like, what was it, 3,000 or something had been deported.
Yeah, it's like it's a deported, or some of them, allegedly deported. And one last, like, I think my favorite, like, less of like a favorite scene, but definitely the turning point where we're like, where is Wonder Woman? Mm-hmm. We have the scene on Amazon, whatever, Themyscira, with the Queen, and she's like, where's Wonder Woman, basically, and she's like, well, she gave me back. I told her she'd come back, and she gave me her sword. And I'm like, weird. And she's like, why not? And she's like, what I now must do, I must avoid temptation. I'm like, that is a great like action movie like line lean into just rampage-esque-ness of what is going to happen. Seeing what's going to happen the rest of the series. I'm interested to see, because it's going to be an ongoing. This isn't a mini series, so it's going to go on for a while. And I'm interested to see what Tom King's going to do with it. Like,
I imagine this arc will be, well, I think we'll get a resolution. Tom King seems like a guy who wants to write short burst stories.
Well, I will say this. I'm interested to see what he's going to do, because I know his Batman run was so much, in retrospect looking back on it was such a long story. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think like for better or worse, it didn't work out. Not a personal taste of mine. I don't think it was garbage, whatever. I just didn't like it that much. Mm. But with this, I'm really curious to see like how he decides to take this story and in what directions he decides to do it in. Because Tom King, he's not just going to end up being just punching things. And the difference between this and I think his Batman comic is I feel like he has something to stay with this. Mm-hmm. Or at least he has a mission statement in his mind to make this comic. With Batman, I feel like he didn't really have a mission statement. But I feel like the thesis of this comic was established pretty early on.
I think the path is also really clear. Like, you just have two
it's a clear
excellent
path.
Villains and a great conflict and a great hero.
Yeah.
And it's just...
And there's really not much more else to say besides that.
I think with this setup, it'd be pretty hard to fuck up the landing. And if it was anybody besides Tom King, I'd be pretty confident. Having it be Tom King, I don't have any doubt this book is going to be excellent. So
yeah. And I mean, also, I'd like to see Tom King's dialogue and storytelling in action books. Most of his books mostly just talking. So it's nice to see when he can kind of stretch his wings and direct action like this. And also the fucking art's fantastic too. So
art's really good. Our team behind this is really good. And like you said, the dialogue is fantastic. Once again, as I say every time we do a Tom King book, one of the only men on planet Earth that can pull off a voiceover. And it's like a constant voiceover through the first book that I think is really effective. Especially over that action sequence you're talking. He's basically just like narrating how I don't know if I buy the theory behind it that like Superman and Batman and the Green Lantern are really easy to deal with, but Wonder Woman isn't. Like it's nice for the book and the context, but
I mean, you think about it though, like, they all have their weaknesses.
They do all have their weaknesses. I do think I think if I'm picking, I'm just gonna say if I'm a racist government agency, I want to fight Wonder Woman before Superman.
See, here's my thing about Superman versus Wonder Woman though. Wonder Woman actually will kill you.
It's true.
And that's what I like about it. Like, there's a certain point she's like, I like Wonder Woman because, like, Superman, Batman, they got this shit. But she's at one point like, we could just kill this guy. Yeah. And I feel like you always need that person in the room. You always need the person to be like, maybe murder's okay.
It's a good point. I still think I'm taking my chances.
You could I can take my chances more with Wonder Woman than Superman. But I do like...
Anybody who can fly around the globe and turn back time is not somebody I'm interested in fucking with.
That only happened in one movie.
It happened, though. You can't be like, it only happened once.
What an insane thing to write down and be like, yep, this is how we're resolving our movie. What's he going to do? Robert, like, can he do that? You're like, I don't know, man. Fuck it.
That's the best part about Superman is anytime for like 50 years, basically, anytime there's a conflict, they just be like, well, he's got a new power, so now he can breathe ice.
I'm happy they stopped doing that. It was getting ridiculous, but it was just like, new thing to fix. I think the best thing about this new Superman cartoon show, which is also really good. I don't know if I ever talked about that. It's my pitch.
I think you did once.
But like they just made, they made him kind of he's not that strong, and I'm like, yeah, this is good. Like, he's not overpowered. He's kind of just a dude who's the show's a romantic comedy, so it's kind of like does his own thing. But different objectives besides the Wonder Woman comic tackling deportation and government overreach,
right,
and government kings. But let's move on from Wonder Woman. I think I can keep on talking about this comic all day.
Yeah, let's take a quick break and we're going to come back and talk about Immortal Sergeant.
You were never a god. You were never even a man. You're letting him kill Martha. What does that mean? Why did you say that name? Find him! Save Martha!
And we're back.
So,
all right, now we're talking about the conclusion of the 9-issue miniseries Immortal Sergeant by the creative team behind the, I'm just going to say it, classic comic book, I Kill Giants, and that is Joe Kelly and Ken Niimura. I think we talked about the first issue like a minute ago.
we did. We talked about the first issue a long time ago.
Yeah,
and just
the
the
9 issues wrapped up last week or something like that.
I think I was putting off reading this like week to week because I was worried because I Kill Giants was the first time I actually cried reading something. If you guys have ever at the time, I'm sure it's available everywhere. It's one of those
Our
amazing
first ever book club.
Was it?
First ever book club, yeah.
Shit.
Very different format back then. I think
Very
it was just
different
the
format.
end of an episode. We talked about it for like 10 minutes or something. But yeah.
But no, yeah, really, I really recommend I Kill Giants if you guys ever want to like read a very like well drawn, very introspective book about loss.
Did you ever watch the movie?
No,
I never
should.
did.
But I mean, like I don't say I should because I don't really know. I'm surprised I didn't hear about it because Zoe Saldana's in it, and I just never got around to it. Yeah, she's like the therapist. I think she's like the school therapist. But
I have a recollection of seeing stuff about it that it wasn't very good, which doesn't surprise me. That book feels very difficult to adapt unless you get a huge budget behind it.
Yeah, 'cause
in a
it's
way
like-
that's really effective. This is a book that I would go. This is a book that you could make on a shoestring budget and be really effective. I like this. It's much more. I mean, they're both very human stories. This one's much more grounded in a non-magical realism world. Where again, obviously, I Kill Giants is still. It's unclear whether anything is real in that book, but yeah.
the way it ends, I think. Well, I don't know. That's I think it is real. I don't know. Like, listen, I think you.
Yeah. Because I'm with you that I think it's probably real, but also you could definitely come out of that with different interpretations. This book is not really the structure of it is not really left up for interpretation. Obviously, how you feel, we were talking about before this, how you feel about these characters coming out of it is different. But I'll quickly run down the plot of this book, because like it's not a very complex plot. It's mostly about these character relationships. Basically, we have this guy, Detective Sergeant, which is a horrible name for a character, but I love it. Is a week away from retirement and is a old, really bastard of a cop, and is approaching his retirement and is having a party that his son, his wife, and their 3 children are coming down to, and in the course of that, the father and the son go on a fugitive chase to chase down a criminal from 35-year-old case that has been haunting Sergeant for over 3 decades. And really that is the plot. It concludes with Sergeant getting his man in a way, but the story of this book is the relationship between a father and son, and the strained relationship that Sergeant's career and his PTSD. I mean, he is not a soldier. We get that anecdote that I think is actually really beautiful about him really desperately wanting to be a soldier. And then he says that line in his speech, the dream was over before it even started because he was denied the medical. And his response, which I think is a tale as old as time. And in reality, he becomes a cop to fill that void. And over those years has seen some really horrible things, including the main thing that is clearly haunting him for all these years, to the point where he carries around the shoe of one of his victims, which is he found a a 1-year-old little girl with her neck broken in a park the night before his son is born, basically hours before his son is born.
Yeah, no, it's like, I think it's like, I mean, he goes straight from that.
He gets the call at the scene in the crime.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets the call that he has to go to the hospital for his birth.
And I think, like, and also what it really does well is, like, you don't, I mean, like, people talk about it and you see it, and, like, you kind of, but they don't ever be like, this is what happened kind of vibe. It's really well done, which is a lot of, like, comics show don't tell. And even the point what you were saying about the soldier thing, because I thought he was a soldier. Because there's, like, this one-off thing which hints at his PTSD in, like, the second issue where he's seeing his 3 grandchildren, like, going into a tent for it. Then it just hard cuts to 3 dead bodies. Like, kind of what looks like to be, like, a war scene. But I think it's just, guess in the backyard or something.
Well, I think you're supposed to believe this guy, whether through the course of his own really disillusionment with the world has turned his job into a war, or whether or not he's really seen all these horrible things. It's probably a combination of the two. I mean, this book, I mean, you asked me before we started, what do I think this book is trying to say about cops and police? And I think it's ambiguous in a way that is really well done. I think Kelly and Niimura do not give you any easy answers. This character, Immortal Sergeant, is one of the worst characters I've ever seen in anything. I mean, he's like
Truly.
a true... Not, I guess it's not true, because he's not evil.
He's not evil.
Actually, it's actually, if I had to choose between 2 of the people we talked about today, I would take him over Sergeant Steele, to be honest.
No, it's true. I mean,
he's more outwardly vile. Like, he's racist, homophobic. His wife, who left him for a woman, and the first interaction we see with them is just him calling her a dyke over and over again. I mean, he's like intentionally, he's a caricature of a racist old cop. I mean, that's the kind of the character he's playing. And you see over the course of the book that maybe there are some soft edges there, but as we both agreed, this guy's not a good guy. Even after the 9th issue, you don't think he's a good guy.
And I think, but he's a complicated guy, and I think to the extent of, like, he probably is one of my favorite characters I think I've read in a long time.
I agree.
Because
I think he's an excellently crafted character. Because
it's like I mean, like, what you said is not false. Like, we say all these things, like, I think, and, like, they do kind of comment on it, and they kind of hint at it, where Mike, who is his son, is talking to another cop at the end, towards the end of the story, where this other cop is a younger guy, he's a black guy, and he's like, well, I mean, like, he's like, is your father went to therapy? And he's like, nope. And he was like, back in the day, the way people used to do things was like, you know, I mean, you don't have therapy, you keep it inside, you go out, you beat some perps up, and that's kind of how you get it out of your system.
Yeah.
And it's, like, very equating to, like, what people used to portray cops as, like, this, like, I mean, he literally is 5 days from retirement, but, like, this dirty Harry, this back in the day, just punch first, ask questions later kind of mentality. And it, like, takes so much of, like, and it kind of puts that character in perspective. And it's like, what if this character kind of does exist in, like, the real world? And what we're supposed to be, like, this cop's, like, a good cop, but he's, like, does all things that's, like, very much not acceptable. And the people, like, those characters back then were saying things that would be vile in today's world. And seeing that kind of character transfer to today without losing any of those values and holding on to all the negative ones is, like, very rough to see. And we don't actually get a bit more of a peek behind him as a character towards the very end. And, like, the reveal about, like, the things that's said about him. Because what we're led to believe with this entire story is that they're going on this perp chase. And I think in the 3rd or 4th issue, where the hint is that he's basically saying he's going to kill this guy when he finds him. Because it's been haunting him for so long.
And not even a hint. He comes out right to Michael's face and say, I'm going to find this guy and I'm going to kill him. And then he does the thing where he's like, or maybe I'm just a crazy old man and I'm lying. But there are certainly parts of this book where you have the thought where you're like, is this guy really not just an asshole, but evil? And I think the book really smartly contends with that. We get that moment, I think either shortly before or shortly after that scene where he's saying he's going to kill this guy. You have that interaction with the waitress, which I think actually it's incredibly well written. But I think that scene's a bit neat. I think if you were a young black woman working in a restaurant and a guy told you a pretty gruesome story about suicide in like an attempt to stop you from committing suicide because he noticed scars on your arm. I don't know. I don't think that would have gone as nicely as it did in this book, but it is a creative license that the book takes in a way that I think is actually really effective for the character. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the first hint that we get that this guy he's like sandpaper.
Yeah.
But with good intentions. And
it's like he is who he is.
Yeah.
To a horrible extent, but his sense of his moral code isn't evil, but everything he says is bad in a way. Like,
yeah, like we said, I don't think the book wants you to think by the end he's a good person. Far from it, but I do think the book wants you to think he's a good cop.
Yeah.
Now, what being a good cop means is like you said, that interaction he has with the young cop is like, this guy is probably one of the best ones to come out of this era that produced really maybe truly evil people, truly evil men.
And I mean, that's what we kind of do get a hint of at the other two cops that we see him work with.
That scene is so excellent. I'm trying to find it. You keep talking about it.
Yeah. Well, the first scene is that, like, because him and his son, Mike and his father, get into a yelling match out front in a bar, and they basically go about to fight each other. But because they're two men trying to fight each other in a bar parking lot, they get arrested and sent to prison. But he's quickly obvious. Like, it's so much of like cop shit where he's like in jail, but he gets let off he gets let off with a warning slap on the wrist because he's a cop.
Yeah.
And he tells the people what he's doing there, and that cop helps him to like continue this case, even though they both know that like he's out of his jurisdiction. There's nothing that could possibly be done cleanly in this, and he leads him into another, even what like I think is the opposite of what he is. And I think what we like see and we built up with Sargent throughout the story is that like Sargent goes to, he's like, his second favorite bar is a black bar, and he's still racist there, but they all kind of like him. And it's like I think it's kind of one of those things where like we know he's a piece of shit, but it's like that's just who he is kind of vibe. And portrayed against this other guy who we see later on, this cop character in rural Georgia.
It's really like this fun house mirror scene where we literally see this guy sort of interact with the waiters in the same way. Or at least close to the same way. He calls her over, he says, "Hey, Queenie, need a top up for this coffee." And then we see Sergeant notice him or the staff spitting in his coffee, which is not something that we get from. I mean, I found this scene again really difficult because I was like, is this scene saying this guy is actually on the other side of evil and is not just an asshole, he's evil, and Sargent is the one who realizes that actually this guy's a bad cop? Or is it saying that Sargent doesn't realize that in this bar that he has frequented for 35 years, that they also hate him?
I think what my opinion of it is that Sarge can somehow tell that this is a bad person.
Yeah.
And we don't see all the interactions that Sarge has with the different people in his life that we beforehand. But even though he is a bastard, they all kind of seem like that's just kind of who he is. So in a way,
certainly
it's like,
everybody outside his family. Right?
Yeah, but I think like it seems like, I mean, even the mother, I mean, even like his ex-wife.
His wife. Yeah.
And it's like
the one example is the one exception to that rule where she does seem to really love him still. Yeah. Even though she couldn't. I mean, once you figure out what happened, it's not a surprise that they couldn't stay married to each other. It's like, it's sort of akin to losing a child. I mean, this guy, you hear the stories of like any parents who lose a child, like the divorce rate is like 80% or something insane like that, because it's just a trauma that you can't get over. The idea that this guy had to see a baby abandoned with a broken neck in a park before his son is born turns him into like this really hardened asshole.
Yeah.
That bringing up his marriage is not a shock. But
and
that
I mean,
she
also
still loves him is not surprising either.
And like we see him, basically his asshole, like his assholeness is his way to avoid any type of human compassion.
Right.
And like I think like because we get this montage, we don't know why he treats his son Mike like such a like a dickhead every day on his birthday. Mm-hmm. But in the end of the series, we learn that the same day of his birth was the same day that the girl died. And when that you get that realization, that reveal, it's like, oh, he just is not he's just not a not well human being.
Yeah.
Who's never been
hasn't
any kind
contended with this trauma ever. Not for 35 years. The way that he has tried to solve this problem is by solving this mystery, which we find out in the end. I think that's the best part about the ending of this book, which is one, I kept going back and forth between what I wanted to see happen. Like, did I want him to be right, basically? Did I want Sargent to be right that this guy was a killer and evil and he tracks him down and brings him to justice? Or did I want it to be on the other end of the spectrum, which is like, here is another black man who has been chewed up and spit out by the American judicial system and is fleeing because he knows he'll never get a fair trial, but really is innocent. And the fact that it's not really somewhere in between. I mean, he did kill his daughter, but it's not because he was a monster, because he was a broken person the same way that Sargent was, or different.
And I mean, like, and unfortunately, that's like a lot of infanticide. That like happens, unfortunately. It's just like, that's I feel like I've seen that in many other stories, and I mean, I know it happens a lot in real life. So in the end of the day, it's like he wasn't like a good person, but like such like everything's complicated.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this story does. And I think like in him and his son, even though they have this realization, they kind of have this like come together moment at the end. It's still not perfect. They still don't talk to each other. They still don't like reveal emotions. And like,
I think that the truth of this character is that he is a racist asshole, but so it's just so weird to say those words and then be like, but deep down he's like a good person.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
I think in the end of the day, like, and I think like that's why I feel like his final thing, because one of the final pieces of the book is they don't end up making it back in time for his retirement party. Mm-hmm. And so Sargent writes out his retirement speech and has Mike say it over because he passes out in the car. Mm-hmm. It says it over the speakerphone over to the entire body of the people at his retirement party. And we kind of get a bit more of the reveal about who Sargent is. Like, we learn about how, we learn about the one line about he said, I pulled my gun 3 times, and I've never shot anybody. And, like, all these things were, like, we're presented to him as being this gun-toting, big shot, kind of an asshole.
He admits it was his motivation, right? He says the reason I became a cop because I wanted to shoot some bad guys.
And he never did.
And then you realize that a lot of his colleagues and probably some of the people he's talking to who are current police officers had the same idea, but he realizes, and that's the reveal of the speech, is that he realizes that that's not the point of being a cop. It's not about shooting bad guys, and if you don't have to shoot bad guys, that's the best part of this. That's a career well lived is essentially the end. And that's why I think that cathartic moment he has when he confronts I can't remember what the guy's name is.
I can't remember either.
But he confronts the father of the who actually killed his child, and that shot, my favorite page in the entire book. That full panel, stark white, him standing there, shaking, those shaking lines, not even looking at him with the gun, and this giant of a man kneeling on the ground, and then it's revealed that he doesn't kill him. He shoots the couch or something, and this cathartic moment, he realizes, he runs to his son and he says, I threw away a child. It's just excellent writing. I mean, if I was going to be cried, it'd be that. I think that scene's so well done.
I mean, I think I straight up love the line, thank you for carrying her. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And he was like, I left Letitia's body under a tree facing the swings, and then you found her and she became yours. I know it ain't worth much, but since you let me come this far, once I came here cleaned up, I tried to make peace with God, with what I did and who I was, and I am unforgivable. I threw away a child, the greatest gift God can give a man, and in his time, God delivered you here for my reckoning. And then it leads to that one scene that Che was talking about, and I think this end of the story, he's like, what happened? He's like, I threw away a child. And I love that kind of like reveal, and especially with the page where it's just like kind of like, I guess I don't think he's ever gonna like become a good person in the sense of like a moral, what it means to be a good person, treat your better man, that whole thing. But it's so much of like, you can just tell the weight has been lifted off of this guy's shoulders, and his entire motivation of continue being a cop for this many years is finally like over. He can retire and be done with this.
Yeah. And I think we see so much of his outwardly hostile, especially to his son, is so much tied to this trauma. I think one of the more telling scenes earlier in the book is how much he seems to love and connect with his grandchildren. Even before all of this catharsis of the trip to Atlanta and leaving the shoe that he's been carrying around for 35 years at this guy's house and really unburdening himself of this thing that is, I think we're supposed to believe is like his true offsetting event that's made him what he is today, and especially his relationship with his son. But even before that, we see that there is something even emotionally that is like that deep down in him that he have this connection with these children. And I think that to see obviously the connection with his son at the end, like I said earlier, that scene where he slept through with a child is excellent. And we get a little bit of the hints of him letting the kid let his son drive and
like a little bit beforehand. I do love, I think, and I don't really want to say this character's motivation beforehand, but like I think the whole mentality that people like him. I mean, he's probably wrong, but I mean, in the back of the brain, I'm doing this to help other people. And the guy, the orderly, I think, or the nurse was like playing the game that his son created. And he was like, what do you even get out of that game? He's like, honestly, like I'd like try to do all those things. It's kind of like, in a way, it helps people.
Yeah.
And I like that, and I love that message so much. Like he doesn't realize, and I think that's probably one of the first like the domino starts getting tipped about being like, what the fuck is he even doing? Right. This entire revenge mission has almost cost the life of his son, and and you like this thing that he made fun of his entire life of like what his son does actually. Bobby benefits more people and brings more people together than anything he's ever done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this book.
Damn, this book had a lot to fucking say. And I'm saying it all out loud. Shit.
I think this is up there with my favorite stuff we've read this year. I really loved it. I really want to go back and just revisit all of the 9 issues together at once. I
mean, I read 2 through 9. Honestly, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, I need to like actually sit down and read it again and not like do what we do for this because. Damn, I'm gonna buy this when it fucking collects. This was fucking good. I
think Kelly and Niimura have something really special here. I thought this book was fantastic, and it's got so many like we were talking on these little details, like you said, the mirror image between those two cops, like that we see, and the book. I like that the book, unlike Wonder Woman, which we just talked about, has a very distinct point of view on the world, and I like that too. We obviously we very much agree with Tom King, and I think. It's well executed. This book doesn't seem to have all the answers, and that
no, it doesn't,
and that it doesn't really, or maybe Kelly and Niimura do know what they think about police and police officers in America, and it's not an accident. This book is about a white cop chasing black people. That's very much intentional, and I don't know if Kelly and Niimura would be able to answer. Is Sargent a good person? Because I think the book is so much about what is a good person, what makes a good father, what makes a good what makes a good citizen, a good police officer, and all these things. And I think the family drama in this is really good. Obviously, we haven't really talked about. We didn't get a chance to talk about too much of the wife and the mother's relationship. I think that stuff is interesting. We see that there's like they've all put up these walls like around each other. Is that the wife. The thing I loved in the first issue, I think it's issue 2, where they start driving down. The thing I love is that we see them in their house, Michael and his wife and the kids, and they seem like a truly like a loving family. The wife is giving him shit. They're having a lot of fun, and then the second they get in the car, something changes. Like, she's like on the way to her in-laws, who she fucking hates. They make her miserable. They make her feel less than, especially his father, and she becomes hostile to Michael. And by the time they get to the house, they've argued. She's trying to run. She's like, as soon as they walk in the house, she's like, I gotta go check into the hotel. And they have this like
they sleep in separate beds.
Yeah, they sleep in separate beds. They have this like, you can see the strain that this event has put on this father-son relationship. Has put on this husband and wife relationship, has put on this entire family over the years, and like the basically the curse being lifted at the end of the book, I think is really fascinating. I would read a sequel. I don't think it would be very interesting. Probably just be a family playing a bunch of Scrabble and stuff like that. But I would read a sequel to find out like exactly.
I'd read a nice epilogue book.
Yeah.
I would read a nice epilogue issue. That's what I would read.
I thought this book was fantastic.
But I think that the one page where like we come back to the house and we see the kid, like he's just so like the opposite of it. Like, and I think like when he's like Michael's pulling into the driveway, we can see all this excitement in his face, and then like kind of just like, you know, it's like I think everyone's kind of this other side of the story. It's like you don't know when you need things, but when they work out, like when they do, it really does. It's effective.
Yeah.
And carrying hurt can hurt people that you don't even realize it's doing it. And I think you're right, as a curse is a good way to put it. And it's like the curse has been put to bed. And not in the vindictive way you would. Yeah. Like no one really, it's like not really satisfying.
No,
like,
I think if he goes to that house and I think if he arrests him or kills him,
yeah, it doesn't.
This is different. It doesn't really jive with the themes of this book. Yeah, like I said, excellent. Anything else you want to say about Immortal Sergeant?
Nothing else. I think this is. I mean, I wasn't sure this was going to make my end of year list, but it probably will. Because talking about it more made me realize how much I loved it.
Yeah, one of my favorites of the year so far. We'll probably you'll probably hear about it again in a few months because somehow 2023 is like about to be over, which is
crazy. Yeah, no, we're almost in October.
It was like, wasn't 2019 like 3 months ago or something?
I don't fucking know.
But just a reminder. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm saying I've been at my job for a year, and I'm like, I've been here for a fucking year?
Yeah.
When the fuck did that happen?
Time be flying. Just a reminder, though, our next episode, which will be hitting your feeds soon, is Deep Blue Sea. Don't watch it. You don't need to watch it. You absolutely don't need to watch that movie. Cory and I will be watching the movie, but you don't need to watch it. But what you do need to do,
I'm an idiot,
is don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast apps. We're all over the fucking place. And don't forget to go and follow us over at youtube.com/@nexttimeonpod. Anything else for the people, Cory?
Nothing else from me.
I've been Che.
I've been Cory.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.